Hey guys, welcome back to Women Think Bigger. Today we're going to explore a topic that I think is quite revolutionary in the approach of manifestation, which is the body of abundance. So we're not going to be talking just about the mindset, the energy, but really what happens at a cellular level when we are connected with abundance and how does this really works. And to do that, I want to walk you through some principles of epigenetics, which is basically the study of the expression of our genes, not necessarily the DNA, but really how the genes are expressing themselves and how this affect the abundance that we can have in our mindset, in our thoughts, what we're calling into our lives. So, if you want to learn more about epigenetics and how this is related to manifesting abundance with our body, then stay with me until the end because I'm going to walk you through how this practically works at a scientific level. So, first of all, to start off, the question that I was asking myself is why sometimes, despite all the manifestation practices, all the embodiment work that we're doing, why do we still hit some income ceilings or some limitations despite having, as I was saying, like the mindset, the actions, and embodying the person that we want to become? Why do we still feel a little stuck? So I used to think it had to do a lot with the mindset or the energy, but I understood that really quantum leaps and big manifestations actually come from being connected to abundance on a much deeper level. And this is when I discovered epigenetics and the importance of creating abundance from the body using the intelligence of the body. Because what I discovered is that abundance is not just a mental state or an energetic frequency, it's actually a cellular state and how your genes are expressing themselves right now. So, the first thing that changed everything for me is understanding that genes expression change. It is not the DNA in itself that changes, but it's the gene's expression. What changes is some genes are turned off, turned on, or to make it more simple, some genes become active or not active based on the environment that they interact with. So when that shifts, everything shifts. Your brain chemistry changes, the default thoughts that you have in your mind change, your nervous system changes, and your hormones levels also change. That's the body of abundance. And once you see it, it's hard to unsee it. So let's start quickly with some basics of what is epigenetics. So epigenetics, what it really is the study of how your cells control which genes are active or not without changing your DNA. So think of your DNA as, for example, a big instruction manual. You have genes for everything: how you respond to stress, how you experience confidence, how resilient you are, how you handle fear, how much you trust, for example. So, not all of these genes are on at the same time. Sometimes they stay silent or they are turned off for some reason. And what determines which ones are on or not is the environment. That's basically epigenetics in a nutshell, is understanding how the environment is impacting this expression of genes without changing the DNA. And when we talk about your environment, we're talking both about your external environment and your internal environment. Maybe how much stress you're under, obviously, what you consume, what you drink, how you react to stressful environments. All these things become the environment that is going to impact the gene's expression. So, all the thoughts that you think repeatedly and all the emotions that you're feeling are sending signal to the cells, and then the cells decide which genes to turn on and which genes are going to be turned off. And how this manifests is then through chemistry changes to the proteins around the DNA. So, you don't need to know all the very technical details, but basically everything that is around the DNA is going to be affected based on this response of the body. What you have to remember is that these changes happen quickly. They're also reversible and they're quite powerful. They're quite powerful because they literally are going to change how the cells work, which then is going to impact how the brain works, which is then going to impact what you think, how you act, and how you feel. So when I talk about the body of abundance, what we are talking about is a specific pattern of the genes expression. Certain genes are on, certain genes are off, and basically this is going to create a biochemical state in the body that is going to support abundant thinking, acting, and feeling. So to make it concrete for you, let me try to show you what two different types of body can look like through the lens of the genes expression. How we can see the two patterns being really affected in the body. The first one we're going to look at is the scarcity body. So basically, when you're more often in scarcity patterns, what happens at a chemical level? In the scarcity body, the first thing that we notice is that the stress genes are really turned on, which means your body is producing a lot of cortisol, which is mainly the hormone responsible for stress. How this is going to manifest is your nervous system is always scanning for threats, and you might often have thoughts of being threatened or things not going right, or your mind automatically looking for what could go wrong, for example, in your life. This is an expression of a very active gene of cortisol production and stress. And in that situation, the part of your brain that handles more the decision making, the clear analytical thinking, is going to be more suppressed. And you're going to be really mostly living in fear based emotions. So let's have a look at how this could look like in the life of an entrepreneur in this scarcity body. It could look like you wake up and the first thing you check, for example, are your numbers, your analytics, how many followers you have, how many offers you sold, how many products you sold the day before. And you're going to be more in this energy of what could go wrong, or at least being more stress aware, more fear based in the way you look at your business. You might have thoughts of this is not working or I'm behind. This could lead you to underpricing because you feel like you're not making it or that people are not responding correctly to your offer. You could also play small because you think like doing more could be dangerous for you, or you could simply compare yourself a lot and seek for external validation just to make sure you're okay. So what you have to understand is that this is not a character flaw. This is not being weak. This is simply a manifestation of a scarcity body, which is affecting your thinking because you're really exposed to stress. So basically it creates a feedback loop of then all of your genes related to stress really being active and the ones regulating the nervous system really being suppressed or more silent. So now let's have a look at the abundance body. What does it really look like? So first of all, different genes are turned on in this body of abundance. Your body is namely producing dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. And these are neurotransmitters for satisfaction, trust, and abundance. In this body of abundance, your nervous system is regulated. In this case, your cortisol is regulated. It's not constantly high. You're very present, you're very alert, but you're not in a constant state of stress. You're not scanning for danger all the time. And the part of your brain that is responsible for strategic thinking is very regulated. So you're not just seeing problems, you're seeing possibilities, and you're able to really make decisions from a calm place, which I call the calm power. This is really what it feels like to be in an abundance body. So, how this is going to show up in your daily life? Well, you might be very comfortable with your pricing, with your offers. You're not constantly looking for validations, or to check that you're on the right path. You're much more aligned with what you're doing, much more connected to your intuition, because your nervous system is way more regulated. You are creating from overflow and not from pressure or from fear. So potentially this could be the same person, but just experiencing different circumstances, which is going to lead to a very different biochemistry in the body. Because the gene expression is different, it's leading to different thoughts, different actions, and obviously different results. And you might be wondering like how this really affects my life on a daily basis. So the scarcity body really generates scarcity thoughts on autopilot, and the abundant body is really going to generate abundant thoughts in autopilot as well. What is really interesting is that it's actually a feedback loop, because researchers found that neurotransmitters like dopamine also influence the gene expression. So when you are in scarcity mode, it's leading to more scarcity gene expression, which then obviously leads to a more scarcity biochemical state. It's really a feedback loop. And in the same way, when we are in an abundance mode, we have more abundant gene expression, which then leads to an abundant biochemistry. This is an upward spiral, this is creating momentum, and this is why it's not magic sometimes when we feel much better. It's really about how our cells are operating and how the biochemistry of the body is influencing the thoughts, and how the thoughts are either reinforcing or not the scarcity of abundant expression. So the real question is, how do you switch from the scarcity gene expression to the abundance gene expression? And this is really important because epigenetics is showing you that the first most important thing you need to do is change the internal environment of the body. And obviously we can do a lot of visualization, meditation, affirmations, but the best thing to do is to focus on regulating things at a biochemical level. So, if, for example, when you visualize, it's creating different sensations in the body, then it's really great. But if, for example, when you're just doing affirmations, there are no sensations in the body, you're not really able to connect, it's not going to be enough to change the biochemistry of the body. And so first, you have to really focus on regulating your nervous system. This is the foundation, because if you're constantly stressed or in high level cortisol production, it's going to be really hard for your body to be at peace and to receive things and to have a more abundant thinking. But most people don't realize that being just regulated is not enough, because to be in an abundant biochemistry, we don't need just less stress. We need to really switch the chemistry to an abundant chemistry. So it's not just less stress, it's really creating different neurotransmitters, different patterns in the body. One of the main things to do that is really to work on the embodiment work at a deep cellular state. You have to basically create a sensation that you're really abundant in the body. And this is not just like fake it till you make it. This is really embodiment practices. So you can also check with your intuition which one feels best for you, but it needs to feel real for the body. That's why when I was saying before, any practice that you do where you actually see that you're not fully connecting with the emotions is not enough to change the biochemistry of the body. A great tip could be to, if you don't have evidence, for example, in your current life of abundant sensations, you can always check in your past. And when you visualize or meditate, you can try to remember in the past how the sensations were in your body, where when you're manifesting things you wanted, when you reached some goals, when you were in a certain energy, anything that can connect you with that frequency is going to help you, like, it's going to help your body recognize those patterns and integrate them again. And the signals that we really want to ingrain in the body is not just I'm safe, it's I'm thriving. And what is really important is obviously that epigenetics is something that requires repetition, because to change the biochemistry of the body, it cannot necessarily be done in one day. So it's going to require for you to repeat those emotions over and over in the body until the feedback loop is activated. So you are feeling more at peace. So then the gene expressions of peace and clear decision thinking are going to be activating, which leads to more abundant thoughts. And again, it's a spiral. So think of it as really an exercise for life to create an internal biochemistry that is going to support all your manifestations on the long term. And it's not just a 1 day exercise, but you'll see that if you start doing this, you can see the benefits even after 1 week or 3 to 4 days, because it's actually at least 3 days after you start doing this, bringing this conscious awareness and doing this exercise, that you start experiencing a different biochemistry in the bodies, and then obviously different thoughts, actions, and results. So I want to close out today's episode by really telling you why this matters for your life and your business. And the answer is, when you understand that abundance is not just a mental state, it's also a biological state, everything changes. Because you stop trying to think your way somewhere and you actually start embodying the person and the feelings and the thoughts that you want to have. You stop wondering sometimes why affirmations are not working, and you start consciously asking yourself, what is my gene expression right now? Am I in a scarcity biochemistry or am I in an abundant biochemistry? You realize, for example, that underpricing your services is not just that you don't feel confident enough or that there is something wrong with you. You start understanding that at a cellular level, your cells are really saying it's not safe to receive more. And it's really hard to override biology with positive thinking. It's way easier to start from the cellular state and then moving into a more abundant mindset. This is why I really believe that quantum leaps are not just about luck, they're about understanding with epigenetics that our gene expression influence so many things in our body, in our mindset, and we also influence it. But it's mainly an internal shift. It's mainly a cellular state that we are consciously creating with how we choose to express ourselves, to think, to act. This is what quantum leaps are for me: a series of choices, repeated choices that change the inner consciousness. So, obviously, this is not something that we change in 1 day, but I really hope this gave you a scientific perspective of how epigenetics are actually helping us to see what we can do to create an abundant biochemistry in the body. So, obviously, this cannot be done in 1 day, but I really encourage you to bring some awareness to how your body is operating. How are you feeling, not all the day, but in what energy are you most of the day? And obviously, if you're interested by these topics, I really encourage you to look at it online, start looking at how epigenetics work, and let me know in the comments if this is resonating for you. And obviously, if you want more content on those topics, don't hesitate to check the links below with all the offers and the products that I have. And on this note, I wish you an amazing day and an amazing journey through your body of abundance. And I hope to see you in another video very soon.